In northeast Wisconsin, KGRB is an easy drive from EAA in Oshkosh. Its 2 world-class FBOs are an ideal place for you to keep your aircraft during AirVenture with fuel discounts, more than 200,000 square feet of hangar space, and maintenance services. Or fly in commercially with American, Delta, Frontier, Sun Country, or United Airlines. With on-site car rentals and a wide variety of accommodation types, KGRB is the easy way to experience AirVenture. You can also visit the new Hold Short area next to Sun and Fun Radio across from the Sunset Grill, where you can register to win a complete Oshkosh package.
Are you tired of uncomfortable sunglasses that dig into your temples? Say hello to Flying Eye Sunglasses and Prescription Eyewear. They are lifetime warranted and meticulously designed by pilots for ultimate comfort and functionality. The flexible millimeter-thin temples ensure compatibility with your headset or helmet, and the shatterproof non-polarized lenses give you a crystal clear view of your instruments at all times. No matter your eyewear needs, the Flying Eyes team has got you covered. You can see them at booth NE40 across from the Sunset Grill and try on aviation's most comfortable shades today.
And now, back to the Sun and Fun Radio deck, brought to you in part by the Green Bay Austin Struble International Airport.
And welcome back to Chats from the Deck Live 2024. We are at the Sun and Fun Aerospace Expo 2024, the 50th annual Sun and Fun. 50 years we've been doing this. The bigger surprise of all is I've been doing this radio station for 30. I have done this radio 30 years. This is our 30th anniversary. That's just amazing to me.
Radio was just invented right before you started doing this.
I learned from Marconi.
Don't worry, Dave. You'll get it right eventually.
Somebody just lost his dinner.
Then that voice you heard is my former friend coming to bring you the farewell UCAP Live.
For the final time.
Yeah, now, joking aside, folks, back in 2007, we did a live episode of the Uncontrolled Airspace General Aviation Podcast, and it went great. And we brought them back for 2 a week, all the years up until just recently. And Uncontrolled Airspace is a general aviation podcast. We have been, it's uncontrolledairspace.com. I know that because when I'm making my 3-hour drive to West Palm to meet with clients, I catch up on episodes. Sorry, guys, I listened to you. The only time I listened to you is on my way to West Palm and back, but I do manage to catch up. So, and one of the voices you heard was Jack Hodgson. The other is Jeb Burnside, and another one here I think Jim spoke to is Mr. Jim Goldman. As is tradition, we are doing an evening version of the Uncontrolled Airspace Podcast. For the next roughly 60 minutes, or 70 or 90 or whenever Jack stops talking, we will be turning control of the deck over to UCAP director, founder, and all-around good guy. Ladies and gentlemen, I relinquish control to Jack Hodgson. Take it away, Jack. I'm going to step away now.
I was looking behind me to see if someone else has arrived, but thank you, David. And welcome, folks, to Uncontrolled Airspace, the General Aviation Podcast. I'm Jack Hodgson, and we're coming to you today from one of our favorite places on the entire planet Earth. That's the grounds of the Sun and Fun Air Show here in Lakeland, Florida. I'm here with 2 of my very, very good friends, and we're going to talk a little bit about aviation, and we're going to talk a little bit about the fly-in, and we're going to talk a little bit about whatever else pops into our heads. One of my great friends here with us is from... I usually describe him as being from someplace near Sarasota, Florida, but he's actually sitting right next to me now. That's Jeb Burnside. Hi, Jeb. How you doing?
I'm fine, Jack. Thank you for that introduction.
Okay,
yes.
Well, it's the best I could do.
No, it's normal. We're good. I'm very good. Glad to be here. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Very welcome. How you been doing? You been able to spend a couple of days here at the fly-in so far.
Yes.
And kind of brief impressions. We'll get into details later on.
It's crowded. It's crowded. Big show, I think. The vendors I've talked to didn't go overboard in saying it's been a great show, but they were pleasantly pleased, I think.
Yeah.
With how well their show is going, and the show's not over with yet.
So that's great.
That's great.
And
stumbling around out here trying to find stuff and running into people and all that tells me it's very well attended.
Yep. My other good friend here joining us today is one of the bad boys of Uncontrolled Airspace. That's Jim Goldman. Hi, Jim. How are you?
I am fantastic. As I always like to say, I'm above average because I come from a town where everyone is above average.
I see. Okay. It's like, should I start calling you Mr. Rogers? Is that what you're talking?
No,
Oh,
Garrison
no, that's
Keillor.
Garrison Keillor.
There
Oh,
you
yeah.
go.
Okay.
There you
All right.
go.
Another
And
American icon.
we don't want to do that.
I want to change Jeb's intro. Today, you could say he's from somewhere near Lakeland.
Yeah, okay.
Rather than somewhere near Sarasota.
There you go. You've been here all week.
Yes, I have.
I had to arrive late. Jeb has obligations, so he's only here part-time. But you've been here all week long.
Yes, sir.
Quick impressions of the fly-in this year?
The fly-in has been very successful this year. The 50th anniversary publicity, advance hype, if you will, has paid off. And people have heard it, and they've come, and you just look at the parking lots, and that's a good barometer. The weather has certainly helped, but the number of activities, the changes to the grounds, which we'll get into, have resonated with people, and they've made it. And I think the crowd size reflects that.
Yeah.
The exhibit spaces are mostly full. That's another barometer.
Yep. Yeah, I agree with what both of you just said, which is that it seems like the crowd is very, very good. I got here a couple of days ago. Actually, the day I arrived was the day that it rained, so things slowed down a little bit that day. It didn't simply rain; it downpoured.
It did.
Yeah. And they had to cancel. I think they canceled or curtailed or something.
No, they canceled the afternoon air show.
The daily air show, and
but the rest of although many people who had come specifically to the air show left. The rest of the expo was up and running, and kept right on rocking and rolling. Yeah.
And then yesterday and today is beautiful, and I believe tomorrow is supposed to be beautiful. So, if you haven't come by yet, there's the rest of today, because tonight got the night air show is happening in about an hour, 2 hours, something like that, and then all day tomorrow, a full day tomorrow. Mm-hmm. So think about coming by if you're hearing this live. Let's see now. So what do I want to talk about here, Jeb? You were telling me, and I didn't actually see this. But you're telling me that someplace on the grounds, possibly out on the Warbird ramp, there's a C-130 with JADO bottles?
There is a C-130 out here with JADO bottles. There's a couple of C-130s. One's Coast Guard, one's Air National Guard, or whatever. But the Air National Guard fuselage definitely has JADO bottles on it.
Now, I saw... I'm familiar with 130s with JADO bottles. I believe it's the Blue Angels support aircraft. And they used to, somewhat famously, they would do a launch sort of to open their show.
For those who don't know, what is a JADO bottle?
A jet-assisted takeoff. It's basically a rocket bottle, thank you, that are, several of them at a time, are attached to the side, in this case, of a C-130, and they are triggered from the cockpit at some point, right about the time that the cockpit needs more thrust. To get off the ground.
Yeah.
Now, I happen to be speaking, I don't know if the guy's cruise chief, aircraft engineer, whatever, but he's part of the crew for this 130. And I said, well, I haven't seen JADO bottles on a C-130 in forever. How often do you use them? He says, well, since we got the big engines and we got the big 8-blade props, we don't need them all that much, but we do use them occasionally, which I found to be highly interesting. I didn't know they were still using it.
Yeah, and I thought it was just sort of a show thing, like the Blue Angel support plane, which has a cool name that I'm blanking on right now.
Is it Fat Albert?
Fat Albert, thank you, yes.
There you go.
And they would do it as part of the demonstration as this thing would launch with the JADO bottles, and it was pretty dramatic because it would be rolling down the runway, and at a certain point they'd fire off these. There would be probably something on the order of 4 on each side, and they would fire off, and this thing would like go up at a 45-degree angle, like from that moment forward. It was pretty cool.
Yeah. Now the flip side of this, there is video of a C-130 being tested for short landings.
Okay.
And they fired JATO bottles pointing towards the nose to slow the airplane.
That's interesting.
Upon its touchdown. Hilarity ensued.
Yeah, I would think that could get a little dicey sometimes.
But there is video of this.
Now, I'm wondering if I could go into Exhibit Hangar A and pick up a couple for my light sport aircraft.
Well, interesting you should say that. All right. So we did some research earlier when you were telling me about this, Jeb.
We.
Well, I was all right. I did some research. Usually it's you doing it. I did some research. And I was trying to recall whether I had heard at one point that the Blue Angels were not going to do this JATO demonstration any longer because the supply of JATO bottles was running low, and they weren't going to do it. And so I'm looking on the web trying to find some story about this. In the process of, and I didn't find that. I don't know whether they ran out or not.
I don't know.
And I haven't seen the Blue Angels do this demo in a while, so I don't know. It could go either way. But in the process, I discovered an interesting thing, and that is that for a while they were making mini JATO bottles. There's actually a name for it. They were called like JATO
Juniors?
Well, that's what I wanted to say, but I don't know if that's what they really were calling them. Anyways, they were apparently smaller JATO bottles, and they thought about having them a factory option. I'm not making this up. A factory option for a Bonanza Twin. All right. And so I think so. Jim wants them on his LSA.
I think that would be cool.
Yeah. And we should get them on the Debonair, so because you need to be able to land shorter at your little runway there in.
I'm just not going to talk to you all
Jeff's
anymore
just
about
shaking his head sadly here.
First of all, correction. It's called the Twin Bonanza.
Twin Bonanza,
which is a specific model that Beechcraft produced in the 50s and
okay.
60s.
Right.
I don't know if there's a JATO bottle for the Twin Bonanza or not.
Wikipedia would not lie to me. All right?
Yeah, they might exaggerate.
Okay.
I could see it on a King Air with a heavy load, but anyway, that aside.
Finally, on this subject, the Wikipedia tried to disabuse me of the notion that there was ever someone who put JATO bottles on his car in order to run it across the desert.
Yeah, wasn't there a what was the old show?
Buckaroo Banzai.
No, that one too. But there was a
Mythbusters.
Mythbusters.
Yeah,
that's
sure.
it. Yeah.
If there's going to be something stupid, they're going to try it.
They're going to try it.
And they did, as I recall, right?
They did try it. It was uncontrollable, as I recall.
Well, that's right up our alley then. Yeah. So I don't know if they did or not. No, Buckaroo Banzai, they drove their little rocket car through a mountain, and that's how
That's the old line from the Evil Knievel movie back from the 70s. Everyone has to make their mark in life. Yours will be on the north wall.
Okay. I learned something the other day that saddens me, quite frankly. One of the things. And we've talked about this on the podcast, I think, many times. All right, one of the things that is notable, that is somewhat legendary about being involved with Sun and Fun Radio here, is that each morning throughout the week of the fly-in, as a perk to radio station volunteers and to various friends of the radio station, is that they make waffles for us every morning. The waffles are awesome. They are truly legendary. People know about them and make sure they come for them each year, and it's a great thing. What I discovered the other day is that you apparently, Jeb, have never had the Sun and Fun Radio waffles.
Never had a Sun and Fun waffle.
Well, it's a tragic.
It is a shame. And I have to plead. I don't know. Kind of set in my way. A, I'm not a big breakfast guy.
This is true.
Okay.
Yeah.
And B, I don't usually wake up here on site.
Yeah, you come in for the day, and so you don't make it early enough. And waffles end around 10-ish or something like that.
Yeah, and I'm getting in the car about 10.
Yeah, well, yes, yeah. And you did. You've gotten here pretty early each day. But I don't know what we're going to do about this, but maybe we're going to have to find you a comfy bed for next year for at least one night so that you can stay here and have the waffles.
That seems like a big ask.
There is an accompanying social aspect to it, Jeb, as well as the food
The
item.
accompanying social aspect is one of the reasons that I can't get up that early.
Okay.
The day after.
All right, family podcast. Anyways, so here's a question, something I want to talk about a little bit here. I'm not going to name. I was out on the field today, and I was chatting with the staff of one of the aircraft manufacturers here. They make a very nice LSA aircraft. And the subject came up about whether or not, we were just generally talking about LSA aircraft and IFR flight. And I was trying to recall, because it's been a while since I've kind of pondered this subject, but there was a little bit of a foofara? A big
Folderol?
Folderol, all right. Back in the early days of LSA, about whether or not if you were IFR rated, was it legal for you to fly an LSA aircraft under IFR situations?
Under the flight rules, in the conditions.
And then it got really complicated, because then the aircraft had to be authorized, or what the right term is, and that came from the manufacturer. the point is, I'm talking with this manufacturer today about this and asking whether or not their new airplane was good, whether they were going to certify it or whatever the right word is.
Permit it.
Or because that's where it comes from, is because of the nature of the regulation on these aircraft. It's the manufacturer that does these permitting or certifications or whatever you want to call them. And he says...
They're called operating limitations.
Thank you very much. So, yeah, because you know this stuff.
A little bit.
You are both an LSA owner, an LSA pilot, and
Yep.
and you took the class.
I paid attention in school.
Yeah, okay. I don't know why we let you on this podcast. The thing came, so here's what came up, though. He goes, well, you can fly it. You can file a flight plan, even if it's not certified. You can file a flight plan and fly the flight plan, IFR flight plan, as long as you don't actually go into IMC.
That's not what the operating limitations would typically allow.
Not typically, but in a light sport, if the manufacturer says, operation in IMC prohibited, okay, that's prohibited by the operating limitations of the aircraft. But if it is equipped as per the regs for IFR flight, and you're good to go under IFR flight, you could fly it on that flight plan. You just can't do it on a day where there's a cloud.
Okay.
I think what you're mixing IMC with IFR.
No, I'm not.
Okay. But my point is the operating limitations would likely simply say must be used for day VFR only.
That is one way they could be written. They can also be written as operation in IMC prohibited is another, and that's a different meaning.
And I see in the notes here, looking over Jack's shoulder, that question is, how do you do IFR without entering IMC?
You do it on a nice day.
Well,
but you only on a nice day.
You also can do it. I forget what. There's a specific clearance. It's not just VFR on top, but there's something.
VFR over the top? Are you thinking of that one?
There's some nuance that I just don't grok here right this moment. But it's a clearance from ATC. Okay. You can operate IFR, but you cannot or may not enter IMC without additional clearance.
Okay. If I were to do it, your mileage may vary and everybody does their own thing. If I were to do it, I would file the flight plan. I would file it under instrument flight rules. And if the route it was inevitable that I would end up in a cloud that would violate the operating specs of the operating limitations of the airplane, and I'm still in VMC at that point, great. You only have to say 2 words, cancel IFR.
See,
correct if you simply don't enter IMC. If you do enter IMC...
This is before you do it.
Before you enter IMC, if you cancel IFR and then enter IMC, I'm not sure what this buys you.
Then you're violating a whole mess of things.
Then you've just compounded your problem.
Right. So the trick is it's pilot awareness. So if you're flying on a nice day, great, you're all in good shape. You see a cloud, you do have eyeballs, you can look out the window, right? You see a cloud, this isn't going to work. Mr. Air Traffic Controller, can I turn 30 degrees right? No, you can't. Okay, fine, cancel IFR.
Then what you going to do?
You're going to turn and not enter the cloud.
Where are you going to turn?
Around.
Okay. What if there's airspace right there? What if the reason that he can't give you 30 right is there's airspace in the way? There's a restricted area. There's some F-16s playing.
Yeah. You don't want to be there, do you?
No.
Yep.
They're not going to let you.
Although, yeah, okay. So it's... But and one thing that started to come up when I was in this conversation today was I thought what he was saying at one point was that a non-IFR rated pilot could file IFR.
Yeah,
and that's not the case at all. All right, no, I didn't think so. So it's still, I think, this we were talking both about LSA aircraft in sort of pre-existing, and we were talking about Mosaic aircraft too, and whether or not Mosaic was going to change this, and apparently the Mosaic specs are still in draft form, and we don't know exactly what they're going to say yet. So.
Yeah.
Are you following that, Joe?
I'm not. I'm aware that there is a Mosaic proposal out there. I'm aware that it's in the NPRM phase. I'm aware that it's going to be resolved or decided in some fashion at some point. But I'm not aware of anything in it about IFR or IMC, and I suspect no one else at this point has a good feel on how that's going to come out.
I read the NPRM, and I didn't see anything that would change with regard to IFR and IMC. Most of it deals with the size, weight, carrying capacity, speed, and other factors of the airplane, and the pilot qualifications. There wasn't much.
Yeah,
there really wasn't anything that spoke to flight rules in that NPRM.
Yeah, I haven't dived into it at all. So
Yeah.
I have
So-
no idea.
If you have trouble sleeping, give it a read.
Yeah, I don't have trouble sleeping these days.
Yeah. Oh. Okay. Well, that's all right. Yeah. All right. That's. So Jeb, when we were brainstorming about this episode the other day, I was saying kind of what are the things that you might want to talk about in this episode, and you quickly, without almost any hesitation, you said oil filters.
I did.
So go.
My engine takes my Debonair's engine takes a specific oil filter, and this is not the first time I've had trouble finding. I bought 5 or 6 back during the height of the pandemic, and for a variety of reasons, I haven't gone through all of them. But I'm about to do another oil change, and I'm thinking, I need to kind of stock up again. So, as I am wont to do here at Sun and Fun and Oshkosh and other shows, just schlepped over to the Aircraft Spruce booth, and I was just eyeballing. I want to make sure he's got some. I want to make sure he's got enough because I want to buy some and take them with me. And they didn't have my brand. They didn't have my size. They didn't have my model number.
So
I asked the guy, I said, dude, this is a common oil filter. He said, yeah, we don't have them. We just didn't have any here at the show. We got them, in stock back at the warehouse. I said, well, put me down for a few.
So they do have them. They didn't bring them here. Or they brought them here and sold them all or something.
Or they sold them all, or I'm just an oddball with that, very popular engine out there. That,
Are aviation oil filters special? Like as compared to the one that's in my Ford Focus?
Yes and no. They're not, manufacture any greater tolerances or do anything greater as far as filtration is concerned.
Right.
They might have a slightly stiffer steel can. They might have a specific kind of filtration media. They will have, in some flavors, they will have a pressure release valve or not have a pressure release valve.
That's the key. I don't think
they'll be screw on. There'll be a small thread, relatively small thread, female thread. There'll be a male thread. There'll be a larger male thread. There'll be a larger female thread. It all depends on what engine they're mating to, and what that application is.
Jeb, when you change your oil, do you send the oil out for analysis?
I used to, but I do not do that anymore. I probably should because I have a relatively new engine.
Okay, yeah, I was going to ask you why you stopped.
Because the engine was so old, it pretty much didn't matter.
Okay.
Yep, there's metal in there. What do you want now? All right.
We got that part figured out.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm just wondering whether there's an opportunity here where we could make our fortune right here, making oil filters for Debonairs.
It'll take us a fortune to get parts manufacturer approval from the FAA to do that. And you can buy other brand name filters. I want a specific brand name filter in a specific model. You can buy that model from other manufacturers. I don't want to.
All right. We can use any filter you want as long as you don't take it into IMC, right?
So that's it. That's it.
Yeah.
You got it.
Okay.
You heard that here on UCAP first.
Just before we started this episode, the Daily Air Show was wrapping up, and today, and I believe tomorrow as well, the Daily Air Show ends with the performance by the U.S. Air Force Thunderbirds, which is really cool. They, just like it never ceases to entertain, to inspire. It's quite a show.
We were standing outside yesterday afternoon just as they were getting the afternoon air show going, and there was a woman and a gentleman standing there. Said, when are the Thunderbirds going to fly? I said, well, I think this is them. This is just one single airplane going around right now. She said, well, where are all the rest of them? And all of a sudden, Whoa! I think that's them now.
It was perfect
Right
timing.
on cue.
It was perfect timing. They did go right over as
There are endless jokes around the field. I've heard them all day long about the noise and why do they have to make so much noise? Because people are trying to conduct business and make sales and all the rest that you do at a show, and everything stops every 20 to 30 seconds.
Yeah, and sometimes even more. They do a couple of different. There's one maneuver that a lot of these jet teams do, which I call the sneak attack, where they're like something's going on out in front of you that's relatively mild compared to the rest of the show, and as that wraps up, they've all timed it out so one or two of the aircraft will come from behind the crowd, like treetop level, at as fast as they can probably go down here, and it's just shocking and loud and I think kind of impressive. But
earlier in the week, I think we heard some booms out there. I don't know if you heard those.
I heard something yesterday, I think.
Are you alluding to like a sonic boom?
I am.
I've always believed that that's very unlike. I think I know what you're talking about, though. I think I've heard a couple of the, I don't know what we call them, they're probably military, but the solo act jets that do flybys and showcase things here.
Right.
And they'll do a really high-speed pass down the runway, and you'll hear this kind of boom. I heard that. Is that what you're talking about?
Yep.
And I wondered if that's related to a sonic boom or if it's some sort of pre-sonic boom or I don't know what. I mean,
yes, that's what it is. It's a pre-sonic boom.
Okay. There we go. You heard it here first on UCAP.
Kidding.
All right, here we go. So Thunderbirds was cool. That just wrapped up before we started doing this episode. What have you guys seen? Is there anything, Jim? Anything jumped out at you this week that you thought was cool that you want to tell people about?
I have never seen the Constellation fly.
Okay.
And it flew by. It's a very elegant
elegant,
airplane.
yeah.
It's big, it's slow, it's a 4-engine, 3-tail affair with a very sleek-looking kind of what you would think about the future would be if you were doing it in 1940. Kind of a look.
It literally was what the future was about if you were in 1940.
Whose Constellation is it? Is it Red Bull's?
Don't know, Jack. Over to you.
I don't know the answer to that. Maybe we can dig that information out.
We'll find that out.
The Connie's very cool. I saw that flyby the other day.
It was on static, and then it did a couple flybys.
Okay, trivia question: why does it have 3 tails?
I guess they got a cheaper rate on each one.
Hangar clearance.
Is it really?
Oh, they couldn't make them tall because that's interesting.
That's interesting. Didn't know.
Yeah. Well, there you go. We've learned something else.
See,
here.
enough.
Yeah.
All right.
That sounds
The other
good.
thing I saw that, Jack, you and I saw that was interesting was a manufacturer produced a Mosaic-compliant airplane.
How do they know it's compliant?
It's compliant with the NPRM, and they are rolling the dice, and they admit we are taking a chance that the NPRM won't change, that the final rule won't vary much, and that this will be our entry. I'm like, bless you. Good for you.
Good.
Go for it.
Go for it, guys.
Yeah. It's a pretty airplane, and we should name them. We can name them, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's Bristol, which is we were there because one of Jim's fleet is a Bristol.
Yes.
And so he said you got to come see this. They've got this Mosaic compliant, prototype. Yeah. So we went down and talked to him about it. It's kind of interesting. In some ways, it looks like from a distance,
they use
it's like
the same.
It's another Bristol,
right?
But apparently, it's heavier. They think part of the Mosaic spec is that you're going to be allowed more gross weight, so they've made it bigger. They've apparently beefed up the structure. They've put a bigger engine in it. They've also made it a constant speed prop because they think that's going to be part of the spec.
And they're going to call it the Cessna 150.
I don't know. Jim, have I sufficiently described it? Is that sort of the high?
And under the current rules for light sport, the maximum gross weight is 1320. But if you take two not so slender adult males like myself and somebody else like me, and you put 400 plus pounds, we'll say, of two people in there and a fair amount of gas in today's LSAs, you're really pushing that 1320, if not over. And so we were joking around out there, but I think it's serious that airplane, which I think he said it was a 1620 or 1630 max gross.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
It's still 2-seat aircraft, but we could be legal in that one with the tanks full.
Yeah. He said that as it stands right now, and it's subject to change because the Mosaic is still a draft, but he said that they gained 200 pounds of useful load with these various changes. So it's interesting. I confess that Mosaic's kind of fallen off my radar in recent, months.
Right, but, because the comment period is closed, and now they're going through the public comments, and we heard that another revision or final rules expected early 2026. It's a long process.
Yeah. Jeb, you've only been here for a couple of days, but is anything you've seen that kind of just jumped out at you that's cool?
No, it's all cool.
Yeah.
Every time I come here, there's I take that back. There's one thing I thought was rather cool. That's the Junkers display. They have two of these antique design but remanufactured modern materials and things like this. Two of these sitting out on the flight line. One's a two-holder, one's a single seat. Tail dragger, radial engine option. It looks like something out of 1930s Art Deco.
Really?
Yeah, Metropolitan scene or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's corrugated sheet metal and all this kind of thing. It was really kind of interesting. I don't have no clue how it flies. I have no clue what it does, how it does it, things like that. But it just looked kind of cool.
So they took the blueprints of the.
It's a Junkers. I'm not all that familiar with the various models of the Junkers. This is what they call A50 or J50 or something.
I guess I don't know, right?
Yeah. I'm just simply not familiar. I beg forgiveness from.
And they built it from the ground up out of modern materials and modern.
My understanding, it looks brand new to me.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not.
I've often wondered why that isn't done more. I've often wondered why nobody makes P-51s from the ground up. Because clearly there's a demand for P-51s.
Well, they kind of do. They just rebuild them.
Well, that's what I mean. They rebuild them.
Yeah.
But why doesn't somebody start with
liability?
Some pieces of aluminum. Well, that's probably. Although, if you can afford a P-51, I think you're probably not all that worried about liability. But maybe you are.
I don't know. I'm not able to afford a P-51, so I can't relate to that.
Ramping up production for the small quantity that you'd sell at that price, it would be tough, and that may be why it's easier to rebuild them than to ramp up a production line.
If they cut the price a little bit, make it up in volume.
There you go.
Yeah. Okay. All right. The thing I wanted to, one of the things that stood out for me, Saturday morning, I went to the balloon launch.
How'd it go?
So the sad part is that the conditions, I think it was because it was not windy enough. Usually they don't fly. If they don't fly, it's because it's too windy. And it seemed like, because it was dead calm down here on the ground, and my guess is that it wasn't windy enough for them to do whatever it is they need to do. But they stood them all up. They inflated them, or whatever the hot air balloon terminology is. There was about 15 or so of them out there this morning, and it's just, if you can get up in the morning, and admittedly that's a challenge, even for someone like me who enjoys this thing a lot. You go out there, dark 30. You literally are out there before the sun rises. You see the sun rise over the edge of the field. You watch these folks, and as the sun is rising, in this golden time, light for picture taking, but even for just looking at things, they're inflating all these colorful hot air balloons, and it's just really. It's a very pleasant thing. I enjoy it a lot. And like I said, unfortunately, they didn't fly. They inflated them all, stood them up. A few of them were doing kind of tethered, going up about 30 or 40 feet with a couple of people in the basket and then coming back down. And then after a while, they started to deflate a handful of them, and that's when I decided it was over. But it's a very, very pretty thing. It's fun to get out first thing in the morning and watch the sunrise, and I enjoyed it. It was good. Yeah, they had to move the. Anybody who knows Sun and Fun and knows the balloon launch, for years it's been done in a very particular spot here on the field, sort of just to that direction, north of the of the
Audio podcast.
Well, I wasn't doing that for the audience. I was doing that for me. To the north of the Warbirds area, and we go out onto the crowd stands on one of the taxiways, and then they use the grass between the taxiway and the runway to lay these things out and to inflate them. For some reason, they didn't do it there this morning, and they did it sort of around the corner on the other side of the Warbirds area on a little bit more crowded, because there were airplanes parked there, part of piece of grass. And I didn't quite get the full story on why they moved it. Someone told me that it had to do with residue left over from the pyrotechnics on the grass out there, and that it was going to be bad for the material of the envelopes of the balloons.
Listeners were working on confirming that story. We'll be back to you later on.
Yeah, right. So anyways, but the balloon launch is great. And it would have been nice if they'd actually flown away, but just seeing them do it, and it's a beautiful morning moment. I like it a lot. Anyways, it continues to be a beautiful afternoon here at Sun and Fun. The crowd, even though the air show is over, the crowd is not thinned out because there's another air show
Because people are
coming.
sticking around for the evening air show, which will have a tremendous finale and fireworks.
Yeah.
The fireworks on Wednesday night were reported to have been spectacular, and I can't believe they'll be any less so this evening.
No, it's going to be fun. And so that's just, there's a lot of airplanes flying back and forth. I think maybe they're sneaking out departures and arrivals in between the air shows. But so there's airplanes in the sky, and there's a lot of people on the ground. The exhibits have at least some of the exhibits have sort of reopened so that you can look in on things. And
aircraft camping and aircraft parking is very well populated, more than we've seen since the epidemic a few years back.
Yeah. So it's a good day. It's a good day at Sun and Fun. I'm curious to hear about you. So, what is Jeb? What is your earliest Sun and Fun recollection? Do you remember the first time?
What year?
No, just something. Is there some memory that you have from the first? How long ago did you start coming here?
Would have been 98, 99, somewhere in that time frame.
Yeah.
Maybe 97. I don't know. I was with AvWeb at the time. And it was kind of total immersion method for me. I didn't really have any mentor showing me around, and didn't really have any prior experience with Sun and Fun.
Yeah.
So it was learn by doing kind of thing.
Yeah. You knew Higdon at the time, though,
I knew
right?
Higdon. Yeah, I knew Higdon.
Was Higdon working with AvWeb, or was he?
Not at Sun and Fun. He was working for AvWeb at the time,
Okay.
but he was a writer, but he wasn't part of the team for that show.
Yeah.
I don't think.
So, I mean, do you have any sense of kind of relative size or?
The place has grown immensely.
Yeah.
It's incredible how much, not just the site itself has grown, but the amenities.
Yep.
The number of people attending, the number of people flying in, the number of people driving in. It's I don't know what the attendance numbers are, but I think it's easily to say it's maybe at least doubled.
We're looking at this year. I think they're estimating over 200,000.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. That seems to be about double what it was.
Yeah.
20, 25 years ago.
Jim, what do you remember about your earliest times to Sun and Fun?
It was 2006, and a little bit naive, as Jeb said. I had only recently gotten my pilot's license at that point, and everybody said, "Oh, you have to go to Sun and Fun. You have to go to Sun and Fun." I wasn't quite at the point in flying that I was ready to fly a GA airplane down here, and I made the mistake of taking a day off from work to go to Sun and Fun.
One day.
One day. That'll do it.
That's what I did.
That'll do it. Yeah.
And I took a late night flight from home to Tampa, got a hotel room there, drove out here at 6 or 7 a.m. I was right here when the gates opened first thing in the morning, ran around the field like crazy, hopped in the rental car and back to Tampa to get home. That was a big mistake, but it was enough of a taste of it to whet the appetite or light the fire, whatever you want to say, to come back. So that was my first experience. I didn't know what the heck I was looking at. I didn't know the different parts of the field. I didn't know anything. I just wandered around going, wow, look at this. Well, look at that.
Yeah. My first experience at Sun and Fun was, I believe it was 2000. I was working for a internet startup that was doing an aviation product. And we came here to be exhibitors. And
You were a booth babe.
I was a booth babe, as a matter of fact. Sadly, there have been times in my work career where booth babe was on my business card. I mean, almost. I've done more trade shows from behind the booth than I care to ever do again. But I was a booth. But the most notable experience of that year here for me at Sun and Fun. So internet startup. We weren't very well funded, but we had high vision. We had high goals, and our founder decided that one of the ways we were going to market our product was to. This was back. I don't know if they still do it. I haven't seen it in a while now. You could basically license. You could get a blimp that had your brand on it. All right, and
Cool.
the blimp would fly around the country and show off your brand. And our founder decided that's what our company needed as part of its marketing plan.
And you volunteered to pilot the
What
craft.
I did. So he says we're going to. We called them coincidentally just before Sun and Fun. We called them and we saying what's involved and so forth. And it very quickly became apparent that we weren't going to have the money to do this. All right. But he goes, well, we discovered that they were going to be here at Sun and Fun. All right, and my founder says we need to go and talk to them. We need to get a demo ride. All right, and so I basically got on the phone with them and just sort of let them believe that we were candidates to buy one of their balloons, one of their blimps, and so they gave us a ride, and God bless them, it was great. It was quite an experience.
That's so cool.
We went out at like you talk about ODark 30. I mean, we were out at ODark 30, and the blimp was operating off of one of the patches of grass out in between all the runways, we actually met up with the people at some place at the edge of the field and got in a van and drove out to there, and it was the two of us, me and the founder. And then there were other guests to the blimp as well, and so we all rode out in the van and got a little briefing and walked up to the balloon, and they showed us the whole thing, and they gave us a whole lesson on how these lighter than air aircraft work, and it's quite an interesting thing. And then we got into the gondola or whatever you call it underneath, and which is basically like it's not unlike the tri-motor kind of cabin. All right, it's kind of crude but nice enough. And so we got in this thing and launched out, and I used the word launch, kind of carefully because it was a relatively slow process.
Right.
But we climbed out of this thing and we flew to that direction, south. All right, and it's funny because it's happened so long ago, and ever since then I've been trying to recreate the flight path in my mind, where it was we went, because I was not anywhere near as familiar with this area then as I am now. But
what was the interior of? You said it was like the tri-motor.
Well, I mean, it was just very utilitarian. It was not at all like airline cabin kind of interior.
Okay.
Right? It was like wooden bench seats, and it was very simple.
Cocktails served on board.
But the pilot, I mean, this very interesting woman who was the pilot was sitting right there.
Oh, okay. So there's no separate cockpit.
There's no bulkhead or anything. All right, she's just like at the front two seats, or one of the front seats. And so she was there to turn around and chat with us while we're flying, ask her questions, and it was great. It was interesting, and so that was quite an experience. I've never forgotten that, and that was my earliest. So that was 2000. I didn't come back here again until 2007 when we did the first podcast here, and I've been back here every year. Well, almost every year since pandemic aside.
I'm watching the departures. There's a steady stream of GA aircraft heading east off the big runway. I'm facing away from it, as you're wondering, but I'm watching the reflection in the glass.
Oh, I see. Yes. Okay. There you go. Yeah. Yeah. That's the direction I know. I know east because I know from the balloon launch. I know where the sun rises. Okay. And so whenever I have to figure out my directions here at Lakeland, I think, where did the sun rise? The sunrise over there. So that's that. All right. There we go. Jeb, when we were in the exhibit halls, I was following you around, and you were looking for oil filters and other stuff. one of the types of products that we're seeing a lot of, we have for a while now, are various devices that use technology to do something that I think we all learned how to do, like angle of attack indicators, all right? And the one that really caught my attention, and just for no particular reason, but the one that caught my attention was a little gadget that you can add to your airplane that will sense your height above the ground and speak it to you, okay? And I was looking at it, I was going, okay, well, that's kind of an interesting gadget, but really, do you need that? How is that really, Jeb,
Part of the reason for those devices is to prevent gear-up landings among retractable gear aircraft. And I can certainly see it as there are all kinds of warning systems out there to prevent gear-up landings. As I say, I can certainly see it as a competitor in that market. Another, I don't know, maybe agricultural application. Go ahead.
One use case that they brought out during their interview here at Son of Fun Radio was glassy water seaplane landings, and I thought that was very clever.
That is very clever.
That could be could be a valuable one. I can.
And I see where it will have two different purposes. You want to have the gear up or down depending on the surface you're landing on relative to a seaplane, as well as how high above the water you are for those. So
yeah. But and there's other. I don't know. I just wonder whether. Well, so you've started to prove me wrong that there are genuine, valuable applications for these kinds of gadgets. It just on some level it seems like these are basic piloting skills that they taught us. Why do it's like judging your height above the ground is kind of like you need to know that to fly the airplane. And what does a box really?
Like many inventions, somebody said, I think it would be easier if we did it this way, and they try it out, right? Some of them, and some succeed and some don't.
Well, and another thing going on here too, I was thinking, the height above the runway for 150 is going to be a little bit different than the height above the runway for a 747.
We would hope.
How do they calibrate? Do they calibrate
they must,
these things?
I hope they would calibrate it with zero when you're sitting on the ground, regardless of where the instrument is located on the aircraft.
I don't know. All right. Well,
I don't know.
I mean, believe me, I like gadgets more than the next guy, but some of them seem superfluous.
And you'd have to exercise caution with that gizmo because, if you're on hilly terrain or coming into a backwoods strip.
Oh, you're 5 feet above. No, you're 10. No, you're back to 5 feet.
Right, exactly. But if you live in Kansas, it may be very useful.
Yeah, okay. We're sort of starting to reach the end of our allotted time here. This is one of the few times when we actually have an allotted time.
I understand.
Yeah, but
the rest of it's just make-believe. That's a fiction that I made up 17 years ago to keep you and David moving along. And it never really worked.
Yeah. A subject came up when we were recording the daily that you and I did yesterday, Jeb, on the subject of what I was talking about unrealized dreams, unrealized aviation dreams, and it's kind of something that's on my mind as I've been involved with aviation for a long time now, and I've accomplished some things and I haven't accomplished other things, and I got to thinking recently about some of the things that I, especially back in the earliest days of being a pilot, I was like, this would be cool to do, and that would be cool to do, and I was just kind of wondering whether maybe I'm just alone on this. Have you, Jim? Jim, is there something? So you've been a pilot for a while now. You've owned a couple of different airplanes. You've had a bunch of different flying experiences. Is there something that you dreamed about doing as a pilot that just didn't happen?
Yep.
What's that?
I really wanted to do more aerobatics. I've had 3 aerobatic instructional lessons, and at one time I started investigating purchasing an airplane that could be used for general aviation, go here to there, but along the way, if you felt like it, you could go upside down for a while. So not an extra 300, but something that would be multi-purpose, but yet had the oil system and all the rest of it to fly upside down. But as I get older, I realized that's probably not part of my future. And for a while, I fantasized about doing powered paragliding. This is the type of flying where you strap a motor and a propeller on your back. I'm not sure I'm up to that one either.
Jado bottles, yeah.
That would be. There we go.
Yeah.
The Rocketeer.
Yeah.
Powered paragliders with Jado bottles. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. Now I'm going to get motivated. So those two things, those kind of sport aircraft-y recreational things that take a certain amount of I don't know, guts and momentum, and I don't know I'm going to get there.
You were present at least one of the acro camps, weren't you?
Yes.
Did you get any?
That was one of the three. My three aerobatic experiences were, one was in a pit special with an air show performer. Oh my God, was that an awesome piece of instructional lesson. I mean, that was not just fun, that was an instructional lesson.
Okay,
yeah. It was stall spin recovery is what I did.
Yep.
And it was phenomenal. The second one was in the Super D up at was it Western Michigan University's program, I believe. The instructor brought the Super D to Acro Camp, as it was called.
Yep.
And we did about 45 minutes in that. And then the third one, to make you all jealous, was my hour in a Mustang.
Oh, yeah, okay. All right. We're going to have you back later on to talk about that one.
Yes.
All right.
That'll be good. How about you, Jeb? Do you have unrealized dreams? You've accomplished a lot in aviation, but maybe.
No, I don't want to sit here and say no. I've realized all of my dreams, but that's not really the case. I still do have some dreams. But I'm content.
Yeah.
I'm content with what I've accomplished over the years. I'm content with where I am as a pilot. It's hard to say. Aerobatics is great to look at. It's hard on the body. It's hard work. I never wanted to fly for the airlines because I just generally don't like to be told when and where I have to go somewhere. Flying other types of airplanes would always be a goal, whether it was a P-51 or a jet or whatever else, and there might be one of those in my future. I don't know, but I am surprisingly, I guess, when I start to consider the question, I'm fairly content.
Well, that's great. That's very, very cool. I'm glad to hear that. Well, I don't know. I heard an interesting thing on the. I don't know why I saved this till last because it maybe.
Whoa.
What?
What is your unrealized dream?
Oh, I mean, my unrealized. There's just a handful of things. There's no particular major dream, and I mentioned this when we did in the daily. If anybody's listened to the daily, but there's just various aircraft. I always thought about owning a bird dog. I thought that was a cool airplane.
The L9 or L.
01.
01 bird dog.
01
Cessna 305.
Yeah. Or in general, one of those so-called L birds, the observation and liaison airplanes, grasshoppers and so forth, Champ, whatever the military Champ was called, and so I always thought owning and/or flying some airplanes like that would have been cool. You're living life, man. Living on an airport, that would have been a great thing.
I didn't set out to do that.
Or simply having my own hangar
Right.
is something that I often dreamed about, but it just didn't work out.
Yeah.
And, it's mostly, it's like I loved Globe Swifts for a while. I thought, oh, that would be a cool airplane, especially the modified ones. What was that guy's name?
I know you're talking about.
Yeah, but so there's things like that, and I guess maybe I thought about acro, but acro's not I'm not a roller coaster guy, and
I'm not either, and I guess I've kind of realized those dreams, at least to the extent that I've ever had them. I like to go places in airplanes, and recent experience, we both know that we can go places in my airplane.
I was a little jealous when I heard that you flew your Learjet to see a total eclipse of the sun.
Exactly.
His Learjet.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but he did. We've talked about this on the daily so far, but Jeb came up to New England to join me, and we went further north up into Maine to watch the eclipse.
There's no better example of the use of a personal
I
aircraft.
cannot think of one either.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that today. So,
Yeah,
you fly yourself into the totality to an airport where a bunch of other people are doing the same thing. What can go wrong?
Yeah. No, it was quite an experience. We babbled about it the other day, and I'm sure there's more babbling in my future.
But
because it was really
that's the kind of dream that I have, is that flexibility, that ability to do in what I want to do, when I want to do it, when I want to do it, and that dream I have realized.
Yeah, good. End of our allotted time. I just wanted to mention this was a really cool moment. I've been sitting here with my laptop at the radio station is right next to the radio monitor they've got we're scanning ATC, and so I've been hearing the controllers a lot this year. And there was a moment this morning when a lot of arrivals are happening, and you're listening to them do what they do, and they do it so well. And at one point, the controller, a woman, was talking to somebody who was coming in, and she said to him, if you manage to put it right down on the green dot, everybody in the tower will cheer for you. All right. And I commented out loud in the room. I said, "Well, no pressure now, right? You know." And I thought, well, that's the end of that. And like a couple of minutes later, all right, it caught my attention because the excitement on that radio frequency kind of like went up a couple beats, and the woman's going, "Okay, you can do it, and then she goes, "Yay!" and she had keyed the microphone, and we heard everybody in the tower like cheering, all right, and
that's
yelling,
wonderful.
all right. So apparently the guy managed to put it down on the green dot. We've talked a lot about controllers, especially recently. We've talked a bit about
the first time you and I flew in together to this event, we landed on the green dot.
We did, and yes, but
we didn't get applause.
We didn't get applause from the tower. We should have, but you didn't.
Oh, yeah.
And you had a great experience with a controller coming back from Maine the other day.
Which one?
I believe it was a Boston Center woman who was being inundated by.
We were at VFR airborne out of Holton. The eclipse was still going on. It was the trailing. It was past totality. It was, and people were starting to leave, and we decided to get in line and leave also. And we took off, and we were just making a beeline for our destination, and monitoring the Boston Center frequency as well as the Unicom frequency back in Holton. And it was, White Cessna departing runway 23 at Holton. 2 minutes later, and Boston Center, if White Cessna would like to get fly following, or would like to pick up our IFR. And it was just a comedy of errors for some of these guys and women.
Well, yeah, okay. But I wouldn't characterize it as errors, because it was just like a whole bunch of airplanes were coming out of Holton all within a very short period of time, and this one controller is doing a marvelous job of managing them and kind of setting expectations and not turning anybody away, but kind of like slowing them down. Not slowing down in the air, but just kind of like calming them down. All right, hang on, I'll be with you in a minute. Or
you cannot have everything you want right this moment.
Yeah. And she did a really great job, and that got us to talking as we continue to fly about the controllers and how, as a rule, they do a really. Sort of the other end of the spectrum was the experience when we got all the way down to Jacksonville, going through Jacksonville, I shouldn't speak because I'm not the IFR pilot, but here's my perception of what was going on there. Is that under the best of circumstances, finding your way through Florida's airspace can be a challenge. Add to that a busy afternoon complicated by the fact that Sun and Fun's going on. So there's A, limited airspace limitations, and B, perhaps more than usual airplanes.
It's opening day for Sun and Fun.
Yeah. And so they're like, they gave you a routing that was kind of...
Basically, fly to Jamaica, turn right.
Yeah, yeah. But the interesting thing, and I'll probably talk about this more in the future too, because it was really instructional to me, and that is that you're trying to deal with all these changes to the routing they're giving you, and
scariest words for a pilot to hear.
Stand by for new routing.
Yeah. And you never didn't try to comply. The thing I found most interesting was at a certain point you said, okay, but hang on, we need to talk about this. There's a better way to, that's not the words you used, but you basically said, there's a better way to do this. Can we talk about this? And to their credit, the controllers said, yes.
He is already feeling bad about what he'd done to
and
us.
The controller said, so what do you have in mind? And this is the other thing you did that was really smart, is that you had an alternative ready, all right? Right. And so you said to him, how about I do this, go here to here to here to here to here. And he said, okay, let me check into that. And he came back a few minutes and basically gave you the route that you asked for. Controllers are great. And my flying up in New England these days doesn't involve a lot of work with controllers, but my experience
they typically are, and the ones in New York my experience is that they take it all in stride, and they do it very quickly because they've learned under fire. But if you go to some of the smaller airports where 3 airplanes stresses them out, you may have a different experience.
Yeah, but any group of people is going to have folks that have less patience.
Sure.
I think as a rule, controllers are remarkably skilled and patient and helpful. And
no argument.
Yeah.
No argument.
That's everything I got. Anything else you guys want to talk about before we wrap this thing up?
No, another great show. Congrats to the Sun and Fun staff. Congrats to the whole organization. It's a success. I can tell from here.
Yeah. They continue to modify the grounds. This is clearly they're going through a multi-year process here, as not simply the Sun and Fun grounds need to change, but this airport in general is really, really going through some
51 weeks out of the year, it's going to be a different airport.
Yeah, but the different airport that it's going to become 51 weeks of the year is going to impact the Sun and Fun situation in a big way, and it's interesting.
So that we can clue people in as to what we're talking about.
Yeah.
The airport, like many airports, most airports, have a long-term plan of how the airport will evolve. That's just good planning. It impacts the Sun and Fun, the area where the Sun and Fun Expo is held, where we're sitting right now. And there are people out there who are nervous about that. What will happen to the Sun and Fun Expo in the years ahead if they wipe out the campus where we hold this event? And the president of Sun and Fun, our CEO, has tried to reassure people that this is, A, not going to happen in the very near future, and B, part of the plan will be to rebuild a Sun and Fun campus, and Sun and Fun will not go away, and that the airport is committed to it. So we should, make sure to take an effort to say that the rumors, and something, I don't know where these came from, but they're going to put a runway right through Sun and Fun, and that'll be the end of it. No, and no.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Jim told us.
Jim's the deal.
Yep. Thank you, guys. It's always great to get together, and it's especially fun to do it here in this kind of a very, very exciting aviation environment. And it's been great.
Yeah.
We got I recognize a handful, at least, of listeners out here. Your UCAP listeners here. How you doing? I think I see a couple people over there. How you doing? Welcome. Thank you. Join us. Come on up afterwards and say hi. And I believe there's some beers and other beverages available, and cheesy poofs. We have cheesy poofs. So. Please join
Praise
us.
the Lord.
Please come up and say hi after.
I am shocked.
We finish.
Cheesy Booths at a UCAP event?
I know.
Yeah.
Crazy talk. Crazy.
So thank you for being here. As always, I cannot thank enough our friends here at Sun and Fun Radio. They have been so hospitable to us and putting up with us over the years, and I like to think that we've helped them out a little bit, but they've helped us out a huge amount over the years, and I can't thank them enough. There's a lot of them who have been very helpful to us, and I'm not going to try and name everybody's names, but I am going to say 2 names. I want to thank Derek, who's kind of the head honcho of doing a lot of the technology stuff here. Derek has been very, very helpful with us putting this thing together today, and hopefully he's made us look good on the video. I don't know. We'll see how that looks, but Derek's done a lot of interesting stuff here this year with the addition of the video live stream, and I believe they've enhanced some of the audio stuff. So Derek, it deserves a lot of kudos. And of course, Dave Schalbetter, who is ignoring us right now, but he's over there, and he's just the heart and soul these days of Sun and Fun Radio. And he jokes about not doing it forever, but I don't know how they're going to do it. He just recently got recognized as the radio station, I believe, is 30 years.
30
now.
years, but he's been,
and he's like 45 years
yep,
into
45
as a Sun and Fun volunteer. Right. He is the magnet that makes this thing work, and makes the tougher decisions, and has the hard conversations, and makes this thing happen.
It's very hard to go anywhere here on the Sun and Fun campus and find somebody who doesn't know Dave.
Yeah. So thank you to Dave Schalbetter, and thank you to all of his volunteers and helpers here at the radio station. They're all terrific, and we love coming here and hanging out with them. Thank you to you guys. Really, really appreciate it. That's Jim Goldman. Thank you, Jim. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Jeb Burnside. I'm Jack Hodgson, and I guess that's enough talking. Let's go flying. Hi, this is Jack Hodgson from the Uncontrolled Airspace Podcast. You're listening to Sun and Fun Radio, WPEP 788, 1510 AM Lakeland, and on the web at liveatc.net/SNF.
Phillips 66 is proud to present the Sun and Fun Pilot Welcome Center located